And a very good afternoon. David Duncan with you once again on 2NSB-FM for another edition of The World of Nostalgia. Glad to have your company because today I have a very, very special guest artist, Mr. Alan Jones, star of stage and screen through the 1930s and 40s. And it's my pleasure now to welcome Mr. Alan Jones to the studio.
Thank you, David. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, your concert's in Sydney. They're coming up, I believe, on Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's right.
At the Sydney Town Hall?
Sydney Town Hall. I played there 2 years ago, and we couldn't take care of all the people in one concert, so we decided to give two concerts this time. So I have one at 11 and one at 2.
Well, we'll get back to the actual performing in Sydney just a bit later, but I want to ask a few questions about your career. When and how did you start your singing career, if you could just give us a brief outline?
Well, that's a long time ago. I happen to be 81, and I go back to when I was 8 years old. I was a soprano soloist in Episcopal Church in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My father was a Welsh coal miner who sang in church on Sundays, sang at socials and things like that. My grandfather was a Welsh coal miner, and he sang, taught violin and piano. So we had a musical family.
Right.
So that all my father's voice was, I inherited that, and then my son Jack came along and inherited mine.
Actually, I did hear a story from a friend of mine in Melbourne. He visited you one time in New York, and he said that your singing teacher was the singing teacher of Caruso. Is that correct?
Well, it was Caruso's old teacher before he died, and I studied with him, that's right.
Okay, now what gave you your first big break in show business?
Well, my first big break was I finally wound up singing with the Cannes Opera Company in Deauville. I had been coaching in Paris with Ronaldo Hahn, who was the conductor at Cannes, and he gave me a contract for the summer there. And a colleague of mine was unheard of at that time, was Lily Pons. And I was heard there by Walter Damrosch's niece. So when I back to the States, she told Walter Damrosch about me, and he sent for me, and I sang for him, and he hired me to sing at Carnegie Hall, the first concert the New York Philharmonic and New York Symphony did combined. And he conducted, and my co-artist was a metropolitan soprano by the name of Anna Case. That was my first big break. I did concerts from then on, and then eventually the crash came on Wall Street. So I went into show business. From show business, I went into pictures.
At that time, did you think stepping out into something as risky, it is very risky now, business such as singing and entertainment, did you feel safe going that way? Or
Yes,
at the time?
I think young people had a better chance, young singers in those days than they have today. A straight singer can't get himself arrested. It's all this rock and swallowing microphones, and to me it's decadent. But no, anyone who had the talent and persevered and was in the right place at the right time could make it.
Your film debut was in 1935 with Jean Harlow in Reckless. Did you have a reasonably large part in this film, or was it just sort of a trial run for you?
No, I was supposed to do Naughty Marietta with Jeanette MacDonald, but I couldn't get rid of the Schuberts. I owed them 2 years, and they slapped a suit on Metro, and they slapped a suit on me. So they wanted $50,000 for 2 years of my contract, and I didn't have it, and so we fought, and time was going by. Finally, when I did get the $50,000, I was in St. Louis, and I didn't tell anybody where I was, and they couldn't find me, so they put Nelson Eddy in the role, and they did Naughty Marietta. So I still went out there, and I still had my contract. So when I arrived on the lot, David Selznick sent for me, and he said, I'm doing a picture with Jean Harlow called Reckless, and she has to do a practice dance in the theater, and she's not a very good dancer. So I want to have someone that I can cut to when she misses steps. So he said, will you sing Everything's Been Done Before, this song? I said, of course. So I recorded it and shot it a couple of days later. And Jean and her mother, I was so scared of the camera at the time. The camera came in on a track, and when it came toward me, I wanted to turn around and run. So Jean noticed that, and her mother, and they took me aside and said, look, don't pay any attention to the camera. Think you're back on the stage. So she helped me a great deal.
Now, in Hollywood in the 30s and 40s, the studios were said to have really owned their stars. Now, who were you owned by, MGM or Universal? Because you made quite a few films at Universal as well.
Well, I was under contract to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
Right, and they loaned you out from there.
And then I did quite a few pictures, but with Nelson Eddy on the horizon, I couldn't get the roles that I wanted, so I left and I had a 2-picture deal with Paramount a year and 2 pictures with Universal a year.
Now, Alan, what was it like working with the Marx Brothers?
Well, it was quite an experience. I had never worked with comedians before, but I had a chance to get to know them because Thalberg sent us out on the road to try out the gags in a picture house. We played 4 shows a day, and the gags were clocked, and if they didn't run a certain length of time, we had new gags the next show. We had 4 shows a day. After 2 weeks, we finally had it ironed out, went back to the studio, and we started the picture. But going to the theater from the hotel, I was sure I was going to be thrown in jail because walking along, Harper would see these lovely girls coming toward us, and he'd leave us and run like mad and jump on them and throw his legs around them. And
So it wasn't just a stage act, it was in real life too.
They were spontaneous.
Night at the Opera, you were co-starred also with Kitty Carlisle, lovely lady and beautiful voice. What's happened to her? Is she still around?
Kitty is still in New York City. She was Mrs. Moss Hart.
Mm-hmm.
She's his widow. And she's the head of the arts, in fine arts in New York. And she has the granting of something like $250 million.
Oh.
And she's very close to the governor. The governor appointed her. And plus that, she does an occasional charity. She was on TV once in a while. We do a couple of talk shows together, and we reminisce about the Marx Brothers, and she's a lovely lady.
Okay, Alan, from A Night at the Opera, you went on to Showboat. Did you play the role of Gaylord Ravenel on Broadway?
No, I didn't play it on Broadway. I played it in Muni Opera in St. Louis before the picture. And Universal borrowed me from Metro, and I went over to Universal to play with Irene Dunne, opposite Irene Dunne, Paul Robeson, Charlie Winninger, Helen Morgan. Metro made a very good deal out of it because they were paid $100,000 for me to do Universal, and $100,000 was my first yearly salary. So they saved a whole salary on me by loaning me to Universal.
Just wondering, in the film version of Showboat, there were extra songs included, such as I Have the Room Above Her and I Still Suits Me. Can you remember why they decided to add these extra songs for the film?
Jerome Kern was there when we were recording, and they felt that they'd like to have a duet for Irene Dunne and myself with the beginning of our romance, and so they wrote the song I Have the Room Above Her. And it's a lovely song. It's a good addition to the picture.
Now, Alan, your role of Don Diego is probably your most best remembered screen part in The Firefly with Jeanette MacDonald as co-star. What was she like to work with?
She was delightful. We got along beautifully. We were friends before we made the picture, and we had a rapport that came over, and it was so different because she and Nelson never get along. There was always squabbling about who gets the close-ups and all this. But we had a wonderful time together, and she wanted to make more pictures with me, but the studio wouldn't allow it. And she said that she did her best work with me because of the rapport we had.
Now, of course, in that film you introduced the Donkey Serenade, which is your theme song. Do you get tired of hearing people, forever associating you with this song?
No, I'm delighted. To have a saying or a song that's synonymous with you gives you a much longer career. And I was delighted. It wasn't a song that was written for me. It was a song that was written many, many years before by Rudolf Frimmel. And they needed a song for me riding along the coach to Jeanette MacDonald. And so they took this song, Chansonnette, which Frimmel had written, for hotel dining room music. And it was a slow waltz, da-da-dee, 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 da-da-da. So they took that, they changed the tempo, they put 10 measures on the front and 10 measures on the back, and Forrest and Wright, new young writers that just came to the lot, they were given the chore of writing the lyrics, and it became the Donkey Serenade.
Now, back to the Marx Brothers again with A Day at the Races and playing opposite the lovely Maureen O'Sullivan.
Oh, she was a delightful person.
Yeah.
Very sincere, very happy woman. And she enjoyed, the studio just gave her parts, she never complained, and she just loved to work. She just got married recently. She married a wealthy man upstate in New York. Prior to that, she was a neighbor of mine in Manhattan.
Well, one of my favourite scenes in the film A Day at the Races was where she was crying and you were comforting her in this barn.
We're in the barn.
And you sang Tomorrow is Another Day. Now, you seem forever popular foil for comedy teams, and in 1940 you were teamed up with Abbott and Costello for their film debut in One Night in the Tropics. What would they like to work with?
Well, they weren't favorites of mine, but they happened to get in my picture by accident. The producer came and said, I had cast approval, script approval, director approval. Producer came 3 days before the picture was to start, and he said, we have a comedy team, Abbott Costello. I said, yes, I've seen him in New York. He said, well, we'd like to introduce him in the picture. I said, where? He said, well, in the casino we could put their Who's on First, and we'll make them henchmen to Bill Frawley, who's the gangster, and that'll introduce them. So I said, oh, fine, I'm willing. So when the picture was over, my director called me and said, do you have cutting approval? And I said, no, why? He said, well, they shot 7 routines of Abbott and Costello, and they put it in the picture, and they've cut the picture to bits.
Do you feel that was the reason why it wasn't a big box office success? Because it was a good film.
It was a good film, but it wasn't. The story was ruined.
Cut to bits. Yeah.
Bob Cummings and I wanted to rest out of the picture. We took a banana boat to Central America, and we came into Panama City, I think it was. And there on the marquee was Abbott Costello in A Night in the Tropics. That's it.
So it's a bit of a downfall for you. Well, even though the story might have been cut to bits, the songs were superb by Jerome Kern, Oscar Hammerstein, Dorothy Fields, particularly You and Your Kiss and Your Dream. Well, Alan, the film The Boys of Syracuse, 1940, was originally first presented on Broadway in 1938. Were you in that original Broadway production?
No, I wasn't in the Broadway show. No, that was one of my deals with Universal. And in Broadway, they had different people play the part, twin brothers. But of course, on the screen, I played twins. And they had Joe Penner, who was the Dromio, the slave. He was twins. And then Martha Ray was in it. And Irene Hervey, my wife at the time, Jack's mother, played my wife as one character. And then Rosemary Lane played my sweetheart as the other character, the unmarried character. And it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed making it. The producer sent me a case of scotch first day of shooting, and so I said to the grips and the cast, I said, now when 4 o'clock comes along, I'm going to put an alarm clock in my trailer dressing room. When that alarm clock goes off, each one of you quietly go in and have yourself a drink, but you take turns. So that was fine. And so at 9 o'clock the first day, the alarm clock went off, and Martha Ray said, it's 4 o'clock, let's go. She'd gone in and set the clock at 9.
Oh, she was a funny lady. Now, of course, one of the songs from the film, Falling in Love with Love, is one of my mother's favourites.
Well, here's one for you, Mrs. Duncan. And I must say that when I first went to England in 1947, I opened the casino and I had my Donkey Serenade. I thought it was going to be the one they asked for more. And the one song that they asked for more than the Donkey Serenade was Falling in Love with Love from the Boys from Syracuse.
Love with love is playing a fool. Caring too much is such a juvenile fancy.
Falling in Love with Love, Alan Jones. Well, Alan, your son, Jack Jones, is a very successful singer, and I heard you say before he had a new album out. That's correct?
Yes, he made a new album just, it's been about 3 months now, and it's called I Am a Singer. And it's doing very well in the States. I hope they get it down here in Australia.
I'm sure they will.
He's got a lot of fans here.
Yeah.
And I will be joining him on the 16th of July. We do cruises on the SS Norway. We've been doing that for 7 years. We've done 35 cruises in 7 years. So it gives us a chance to be together. And we used to do 6 in a year, and now we do 3.
She listens carefully to each of the tune you play. She's seen me muchacho, she'd like to sing it too if only she knew the way.
Try as she may, in her voice there's a flaw, and all that the lady can say
Is yours. Senorita, donkeycita, not so Peter, so mosquito, but so sweet like Margarita, you're the one for me. You're the one for me. Hooray!
Merry Christmas, son. Merry Christmas, Dad.
I've got a message from the man in the moon for you, just you.
Okay, Alan, I'd like to just thank you very much for coming and spending some time
Well,
with
it's
me.
been a pleasure. Thank you. I'm delighted to have you as a fan because most of my fans are 60 and 70 years old, and here you're a young
That's right.
man. I'm very flattered.
Keeping you away, but I'm just delivering a message. He told me to take. I've got the message saying love will be round to call, and then if we don't meet him, he may never be round to call again. The evening found me lonely, and I thought you might be lonely